Eddie Cantu, County Commissioner for Precinct Number 2.
Perfect. So now, I know when you were, talking a little bit, giving your speech, you mentioned a couple of things like such as education, diabetes. Now, why is this task force important? Why are we having this meeting?
So the purpose of the task force is to try to break the cycle of poverty. As we all know, education is the best way to break the cycle of poverty. From the precinct perspective, the best way to do it is to help our kids. When our kids leave school, they're most vulnerable, so that's why we provide Boys and Girls Club programs. Precinct 2 now has about 6 Boys and Girls Clubs in the precinct. We know that the school district has enough money to educate our children, but what happens when they leave the school district? That's what's very important to the precinct. That's what Boys and Girls Club does a really good job of. We also have started advancement centers in our community resource centers. This is one of our community resource centers. The other one is in Lopezville. At those advancement centers, we have all types of classes for adults, from ESL classes, GED classes, certificate programs through STC, so that if it's difficult for them to go all the way to the STC campus, they can go to our community resource centers and obtain different certificates that we have. We're trying to get people more educated so that they can have more opportunities in the job market.
What is the task force doing to, bring that, more education to the colonia?
I think what the task force main purpose is to listen to what the community's needs are, and then from there try to help them, with their needs. We understand that we have a high level of poverty in our community, but it's getting better, but we know that it's getting better because of education. So not only do we look at education, but we also look at wellness. We also look at the health of the community. That's why we have a lot of our partners, such as El Milagro, Hope Clinic, Nuestra Clínica here today. We need to also work on our wellness, on our health, so that we're not having to deal with diabetes, hypertension, and all of that in the future. If we can prevent it from when kids are young, if we can teach them what to eat and what not to eat, so that we're not having to treat them for diabetes as an example. Let's prevent diabetes. So we also have a lot of partners working on that. Obviously we have our STC and UTRGV partners so that we can educate our community. The more we're educated, the more opportunities that exist.
Would you say that education is kind of like where it all begins? If they're more educated, they'll be, less likely to get diabetes, less likely to go into those type of realms?
Sometimes, I can't really say that education is going to prevent that. We need to have the schools, if the schools take on the responsibility, and I think that PSJ has started this, if they teach wellness in the school district, then obviously they'll have a better chance. If we don't teach wellness in our school districts, if we're teaching or we're allowing our kids to eat junk food, from chips to Cheetos and stuff that's not healthy for them, well, it's going to become a vicious cycle throughout their whole life. But if we can teach them early, this is what you eat, this is what you don't eat, then hopefully we can prevent a lot of the illnesses that we have. We're very well known in the valley to be sicker than the rest of the country. And it all comes down to what we eat and how much we exercise.
Yeah, any questions?
Okay, yeah, just a couple, Eddie. The legislative session is coming up. Do you feel that our delegation can help pull down funds to address anything specific that's coming out of this task force in terms of recommendations?
Housing, one of the things we didn't talk about is the need for housing. I think that the state legislature can help a lot with housing. They can help with funds for wellness, for health. There's a lot of fight over getting enough Medicaid and Medicare funds, or Medicaid funds, which comes from the state. For whatever reason, the state sometimes ignores us and doesn't provide enough health funding down here to the valley. Obviously, we're more dependent on stuff like Medicaid, and for whatever reason, the federal dollars are not coming from the feds to the locals. So I think the state legislature could help with that also.
And the judge really wanted to hear from these colonia groups today. Do you feel that they should have a seat at the table when the valley as a whole sets its legislative agenda? Should all the legislative agenda items that the chambers, the partnership, the cities develop going into the session, should the colonia groups, their issues be included?
The colonia groups are very necessary, but I sometimes think that they cloud the issue. And what I mean by that is they'll group 8 issues together, and not all the 8 issues are state related or county related. Some of them are federal, some of them are state, some of them are county. So long as they're talking to the right people, right? Hey, county, help us with this, and what we can help them with, right? Local dollars. Obviously, we can also advocate for them to the state, but let's make a clear path of this is what the county can help with, this is what the state can help with, and this is what the federal government can help with. There was a letter, I believe it was a letter to the Monitor recently, and they had just thrown all 8 issues together. And I mean, I'd love to help, but there's only certain things I can do, right? I can't control the immigration issues because that's a federal issue. And so when you put them all together, it's really difficult. When you can carve them out and say, this is how you can help us, I mean, we would gladly help. We do listen to them. We brought lighting in the last 7 years when you didn't have lighting in the colonias before. We're trying to bring trash to the colonias, to the rural area. We haven't had trash in the rural ever, where everybody has a trash can at their house. That should be a necessity, and unfortunately, the way the state statutes and constitution is written, it's really difficult to get trash out into the colonias, but we're trying to deal with that issue. We've also brought code enforcement. We didn't used to have code enforcement in the rural areas, so that, for instance, if your neighbor had a weedy lot or junk tires or whatever, it used to be until about 5 years ago that you couldn't call the county to work on that. Now you can call the county, and we can go out there and pick up trash and find people that are making a mess in the community. So we're trying to bring what the city already has been doing for 50 years, we're trying to bring that into the rural area of our community.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I said a lot.
You did.
Super quickly, what are the key issues right now? Because I know you mentioned that there were like 8 different separate issues. What are the key issues that the task force is trying to, the key issues that the forum will help?
So when I look at who the judge has invited, like I said, he's invited people in the health area. He's invited people in the housing community. He's inviting the colonia advocates. So I think that that's a great start. I think that we also have to invite people that are working with our kids. The way you break the cycle of poverty is through education. So for instance, if an adult comes over from Mexico or a different country, it's really hard to make progress, right? Because they don't have a social security number. It's hard for them to get a job. But if they have kids, they're automatically eligible to go into our schools. If those kids are in our school, I guarantee that those schools are going to help them break the cycle of poverty. It's what do we do with the adults that have already aged out of the school system? That's the hard part. I'm hoping that this task force can help those people that are already outside the school district. You know, one of the things is our school districts have the most money, right? So they're helping educate people. But how do we educate people that have already aged out of the system? That's a little more difficult. And hopefully that's what the task force is doing.
Perfect. So now, just super quickly in Spanish.
Sure.
Si nos puede explicar